Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio, Sinoland. Before we get started, please make a contribution to all of my hard work, my research, and putting all this information and these articles and audio and video podcasts together. This has been a horrible month. September's just been like the worst. So make my wife happy. She's a keyboard widow. She deserves a pat on the back for the fact that my journalism for you has a huge effect on her. So thank you. This one is entitled, "In the West, Socialism is for Corporations and Billionaires." In China, here's a company helping out Guizhou province's government with a huge bond purchase. Pictured above, bottles of the most famous Maotai brand in the world, Quichou, based in Guizhou province, China. Here we go. In my first China trilogy book, 44 Days, I traveled to and spent time in Guizhou province. It is one of the poorest areas in China and also one of the most spectacularly beautiful. Every culture has its, quote, white lightning, end of quote, high alcohol beverage, Russia's vodka, Scandinavia's akvavit, Cuba's rum, Mexico's tequila, USA's bourbon, and France's cognac, among many others. In China, it's called motai or maotai. No, not distilled from rice, but from sorghum. And the world's most famous is distilled in Guizhou. The anglicized brand name is Quichou, Kweichou, but I'm going to pronounce it Guizhou. When I traveled across Guizhou, I saw kilometers of red sorghum growing up the hillsides, ultimately destined to light up many a stomach and brain across dining tables in China. Ganbei, bottoms up. Like many of these historic Chinese companies, Guizhou is a state-owned enterprise, an SOE. Make that a very big SOE with a market capitalization of over 2 trillion RMB. That's 300 billion US, meaning it is almost 3 times bigger than global beverage giant Anheuser-Busch InBev. About 20% of this is traded on the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and the other 80% is owned by Guizhou Province's State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission, abbreviated SASAC, SASAC. We Westerners all know stories about how huge transnational corporations easily corrupt governments all over Uranglo land. The officers and preferred stock owners can become billionaires by looting their company's assets and then being, quote, too big to fail, end of quote. They run to the state treasuries to get bailed out. It's called socialism for the 1%, and the 99% lose their jobs and get stuck paying higher taxes to keep them flush. Or, like in Greece and Cyprus, often via the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, the IMF, the global capitalist gangster banksters declare not a bailout, but a bail-in, and simply steal money out of citizens' bank accounts to pay government debts owed to the gangster banksters. Other Western countries have also codified bail-ins when the time is right, making the COVID pandemic especially foreboding. Not so in communist socialist countries. In China, socialism benefits the 99%, while the 1%, including companies, are expected to maintain solidarity with the masses, paying a lot in taxes, donations, etc. Thus, Guizhou just announced that it is issuing 15 billion RMB, that's $2.2 billion in corporate bonds, not to build a bigger liquor empire, but to use this money to buy shares in fellow SOE Guizhou Expressway Group, which has seen its debt load dramatically increase this year due to COVID travel restrictions, reducing highway toll traffic. In further solidarity, Guizhou, as in Guizhou Maotai, has come to the aid of its provincial government to help with other debt. One of its subsidiaries has been authorized to spend 70% of its total capital to buy Guizhou bonds for local governments to finance automobile purchases. Who would have thought? For Westerners who are so accustomed to having capitalist gangsters line up at the taxpayer's trough to rob them blind, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? But this is how real socialism for the 99% works, and it demonstrates the synergistic powers of SOEs being able to help each other out in times of distress. Who knows? The big Buddhist wheel of life keeps on turning, and maybe in a few years it will be other SOEs helping Guizhou Maotai through a tough patch. It sure as hell beats parasitic capitalism's massive layoffs and cynically planned bankruptcies, while the officers help themselves to criminal stock options and obscene golden parachutes, becoming billionaires in the process. I have reported many times about why the capitalist West simply cannot compete fairly and on a level playing field with communist, socialist, anti-imperialist countries. China, DPRK, Vietnam, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and a number of others defiantly refuse to be Euranglo-land's whores. Thus, global gangster capitalism resorts to piracy, asset seizures, sanctions, blockades, extortion, and if they are not strong enough, they get invaded and occupied, like Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, to be raped and plundered. This story about how corporations in China are working together to help each other out is one more example of socialism's superiority over capitalism. No wonder Westerners are totally brainwashed from birth to believe that communism, socialism, is worse than slow, agonizing death. Otherwise, they might demand real people's democracy for the 99% at the expense of the oligarchic 1%. Nah, can't let that happen, because then you might get to keep your jobs and houses. Heaven forbid! This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out. Have a good day.